which are currently, and I'll briefly go over these, RNA therapeutics, antibody based, which could be pure antibody or antibody drug conjugate, or cell based, which is CAR T, for example, chimeric antigen T cell receptors. So the field has evolved from, it's not that it's a new thing. पहले भी जो है, चाहे उसका नाम नहीं था biological therapeutics, but people used to use, for example, आप दही जो खाते हैं वो क्या है? It's a bacteria, right? It's a bacteria, उसका therapeutic effect है. तो same way things have developed. ये देखो, ये just one of the things that have, इजिप्ट के अंदर मेडिकल हर्बल सिस्टम यूज होते थे, इंडिया के अंदर आयुर्वेदिक मेडिसिन, उसके अंदर जैसे एज आई मेंशन कर्ड, दही जो है, बट दीज आर माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म. सो इट्स अ बेसिकली biological therapy, right? So these have been around for a while, and different places, different things at different timeline, as you see here on the screen, have evolved and have been used effectively. More recently, as we were talking yesterday, vaccine, RNA vaccine, COVID happened, and now there are so many, therapies based on COVID. So I'll quickly go over. So this is basically now, as more and more understanding of the biology, specifically of the immunology, the immune system, body का जो defense mechanism है, जो immune system है, उसकी understanding जैसे ज़्यादा होती जा रही है, people are trying to come up with very creative way to use body's own immune system to fight against diseases. And that's basically simply what immune therapy is. And there are, so just if you look at the cartoon, traditional method जो है, immune therapy versus cancer therapy, which is जो अब तक के, what I've been telling you is drugs बनाने, drug design करने, but these are chemotherapy design which are from outside. Immune therapy, as I mentioned, which is uses body's own immune system to fight against the disease. And if you look at in terms of the scale at which size-wise, you look at the small molecules, nucleic acid bigger, peptides bigger, enzyme, antibodies commonly used, and cell-based therapies, microbiome. How many of you have read chemistry articles in microbiota? Do you know what is microbiota? आपका जो stomach है, everybody has their own microbiota. And that microbiota reacts, therefore different people will react differently to what next goes in, whether it's a therapy, ya khana. If you give, for example, people say they are allergic to something. Allergy, there could be many other reasons, but microbiota जो है, gut microbiome जो है, is different. A vegetarian versus non-vegetarian, उसका अपना genetic makeup कैसा है, कितना खाने की आदत है, वो सिर्फ रोज खाता है, सिर्फ मंगलवार को ही छोड़ता है या बिल्कुल नहीं खाता. All of those things जो है play these things. So that microbiota जो है is the reason I suddenly realized the microbiota and chemistry. Again, those of you all, those who are chemists interested in, it's a field which is slowly starting to open. And again, like I was telling, radionuclide, radiopharmaceuticals के अंदर जाने का, माइक्रोबायोटा के अंदर आप केमिस्ट बन के केमिस्ट्री की डिग्री यहाँ से ले, जहाँ मर्जी से ले, अच्छी तरह से मेहनत मशक्क़त करके आप माइक्रोबायोटा के रिसर्च में आप एंटर कीजिए. इट्स अ स्लोली ओपनिंग फील्ड, एंड दैट्स बेसिकली व्हाट इज हैपनिंग. सो ऑन द स्केल ऑफ एटॉमिक स्केल, मॉलिक्यूलर स्केल, small molecule छोटे से हैं, you can draw the structure, you can care. Then peptide, nucleic acid peptide, you can do that. But when you get into enzymes and antibody, they are larger. Now, larger, their properties could be different. Again, going back to the question asked about BBB, blood-brain barrier, how will they cross, or how to tag those. So, various of these cell-based, you give the whole cell as a treatment. So, cell-based therapy, if you are reading the latest literature, or if you have been reading the literature, the gene therapy, cell-based therapy, these are the latest advancement. कि cells अपनी body के cells ही दिए जाते हैं against to fight your own disease. So if you look at, so as I mentioned, RNA, I will touch upon RNA, antisense, antibodies, and cell-based CAR T cells. So field on the human scale, if you think that it's ज़्यादा पुरानी नहीं है, 60s में ही उसका systematically बनना शुरू हुआ, and now 2018 there are RNA drugs, approved drugs, which are in the market. So how does RNA therapy works? So antisense, these are smaller makeup of RNA which can be designed to systematically go and interfere in the part of the body. These are small RNA sequence which are antisense part known. वो आपको design कर सकते हैं, that will go and tag into the protein of interest, and they do same biological intervention, stop the function of proteins that you don't want. जैसे overexpression of certain proteins leads to cancer, and that cancer basically those proteins then activate cell growth faster. Therefore, cancer grows, cells goes faster than the normal cells, right? If you can design an antisense, if you can design RNA, we can go and block that interfere into the progress in the repetition of the proliferation of the cells, that becomes a drug, right? So that's what basically what it does. Again, because they are smaller, they are also used as RNA delivery system. Where was drug delivery? क्या अभी मैं बात कर रहा था, drug delivery. This is drug delivery. And drug delivery, you can design, RNAs are used to again design to go inside the body and carry the cargo, quote unquote, your drug, which is the cargo, that RNA is the delivery boy or girl, which takes the cargo to the site of injection. So RNA based, there are many therapies which are based on the RNA and RNA, and here are a few like antisense. You know, these are the which are currently being developed, being used. There are drugs which are in the market based on RNA. So this is, you know, whether they are antisense, iRNA, interference RNA, like mRNA, messenger RNAs. You might have heard this, aptamers. These are all mRNA vaccines. अभी COVID से थोड़ी देर पहले छुटकारा मिला नहीं है. It has been diluted. The strain has been diluted. It is very likely, I think in the Western world it's already happening. It is becoming more like आपका flu vaccines जो होती है ना annually लेनी पड़ती है flu season के अंदर. उसी तरह से COVID का भी है कि it has become, because the strain is diluted now. So you probably take, because if you take the COVID vaccine, first, second, its effect is lasting only to some extent, and again, दूसरी strain आ जाती है. But it has been diluted and there are strains. So it will probably, I don't know how it's here, but हमें वहाँ पे जो है already instructions आनी शुरू हो गई कि this is more like you take annually, COVID vaccine जो है. So again, what is that? It's an RNA based vaccine जो है, or you can synthetically you design जो है RNA, or CRISPR-Cas9. Okay, I will leave that for you to study. But then again, it's one of those. So the advantage is that if you take an RNA-based vaccine, it will bind to the RNA of interest that you want to. It will cause a degradation faster compared to a small molecule which has to go and has to do that. So another advantage is that it's the ease, आसान है just to integrate with the existing therapies के साथ में. It's not too complicated. You can just mix and match. You can give multiple combination therapies with that. They are a bit unstable, and sometimes it could be a disadvantage depending on what you're looking for. The question for that is, if you have an RNA, what is the right target of that RNA जिसको आप target कर सकें? So that takes a little bit of research to be done. But overall, once you have figured it out, okay, which is the target for the RNA, you can design it's easier to develop as a therapeutics, relatively easier to develop as a therapeutic compared to a small molecule. लो अब ढूंढते रहो इस ओशन के अंदर को कहाँ जाके टकराएगा या कितना असर करेगा या किसी और को साथ में जाके वो टॉक्सिक इफेक्ट तो नहीं कर देगा. So there are advantages and disadvantages, and I will skip this because this is in writing and you will have it. What are the properties of antisense RNA? I was just, when I was preparing my lecture, I just thought probably I will include this. You don't need to go through this, you will have this in your handouts. And also, इसमें 25 पेपर हैं, review articles, which will related to all the lectures that I have given and the lecture I will give. So you will have, in addition to these, you will have a lot more information that you can just use as a reference. As you can see, it's nearly a book that I created, and you will have that. And I'll give it to Dr. Singh, and you will have all that information. So I'm not going to एक एक चीज पढ़ने वाला नहीं हूँ. But there is no point. I mean, you're not into kindergartners. You can just do some of this your own. So anyway, again, so I will not. So that's one technique, RNA-based technique, which is antisense, जो design कर सकते हैं आप RNA, smaller version of the RNA, and then you look for उसका target कौन सा है. It is very specific. Once you know what the target is, it will not interfere with anything. It will just go and interact with that. And if you can find that match, voila, it becomes highly, highly effective therapy. So it's a rapidly growing mechanism. And again, so the mechanism through which it works is find where it binds to, which RNA piece that it binds to, where it cleaves, where cleaving, and if there is a translational, translation and transcription, जो आपको बताया था, S phase, G1 phase, M phase, G2 phase, जो transcription जो हो रहा है, cell replication का, in the proliferation process, specifically if you know it can go and bind, design, it can help you to understand the mechanism part of this. So, and then if you can break that, क्योंकि ट्रांसक्रिप्शन में क्या हो रहा है, आपका पुराना सेल से नया सेल बन रहा है, राइट. एस फेज में स्टार्ट फेज है, गोज टू G1 फेज, माइटोसिस फेज, G2 फेज, उसमें जो आपकी जो इंफॉर्मेशन वो ट्रांसफ़र हो रही है ना, अगर बीच में उसको रोक दिया, अब आप सोचिए अगर कैंसर सेल है, वो ट्रांसफ़र होने जा रहा है, उसको बीच में ब्लॉक कर दिया तो आगे वो नहीं बढ़ेगा, तो देन जिसने उसको रोका वो ड्रग बन गया उसके लिए. सो दैट इज़ हाउ दिस एंटीसेंस और RNA बेस्ड थेरेपीज आर एक्सट्रीमली effective. Again, this is again I just put the list of various applications that you can have. What steps are taken, and the application part, a lot of application. Where disease, I said NCDs for example, non-communicable diseases, cancer, neurodegeneration, viral. We just now saw viral COVID के साथ में जो अभी देखने को मिला है कि जो वायरस को करने के लिए genetic disorder, there is a mental disorder, there these have been developed, are being developed, and there are many other rare diseases. So Ionis, IONIS is one of the company which is one of the leader in they have about 30 plus drugs in the market, specifically for rare diseases, because the diseases where there are many patients, pharma company उसमें invest करती है क्योंकि they have to answer to their stakeholders, they have to make money in order to continue to do that. जो rare disease है जिसमें patient ही बहुत कम है, there are not too many people who are interested in developing their science, क्योंकि अगर वो $1 billion invest करते हैं कुछ वापस आएगा नहीं. But there are companies who have mastered these techniques, and that's the truth. So Ionis is one of those company which has been since 80s. And RNA का, just as I was telling, there are antisense oligonucleotide ASOs, interference RNA, RNAis, CRISPR-Cas9 combination है. And again, I will not blabber on this. I already told you there are various applications of this. For delivery, for specific interaction, to get the immune response, but it's cost depending on how easily you can make or target. I will not touch cost on this part right now because cost is a business aspect. That's a different part. Now, आप लोगों ने नाम सुना होगा CAR-T, सुना है? It's a cell-based therapy. आपने कार का नाम तो सुना है, वो तो सुना है ना, कार. CAR-T are chimeric antigen receptor T cells इम्यून सिस्टम के अंदर। तो जो कार है उसके आगे टाटा लगा दीजिए, it becomes CAR-T. And that is one of the fast growing and one of the best way immunologists been working for last 30 years, 30-40 years or so, कि अपने ही immune cells जो हैं उनको किस तरह से एक्टिवेट किया जाए कि वो डिजीज सेल के ऊपर अटैक करें। इट्स अ वेरी क्रिएटिव वे, वेरी स्मार्ट वे। यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द होल थिंग कि अपने इम्यून सिस्टम को किस तरह से किया जाता है, उसके एडवांटेज एंड डिसएडवांटेजेस हैं। क्योंकि आप क्या करते हैं आप, इसके अंदर एनीवे, बेसिकली स्टेप्स इन्वॉल्व, इफ यू से यू हार्वेस्ट इम्यून सेल्स फ्रॉम इंडिविजुअल्स पेरिफेरल ब्लड, पीबीएमसी पेरिफेरल ब्लड जो है उसमें से आप उसके ही इम्यून सेल्स को निकालते हैं। यू हार्वेस्ट, दीज आर द स्टेप्स इन्वॉल्व। यू जेनेटिकली इंजीनियर दोज सेल्स, right? And you take those cells, so this is basically specific to where the target is. You create chimeric antigen receptor. These are T cells. Okay, आपने T cell, B cell का सुना है, right? These are T cells. टाटा है और बाय बाय है, easy to remember. T cells and B cells are important immune cells in the body, right? So उस तरह से, so just think how creative way कि अपनी ही बॉडी से पेशेंट के जो हेल्दी सेल्स हैं उनको निकाला, उनको इंजीनियर किया और बाद में उसी को ट्रीटमेंट करने के दिया, सो दैट दे गो इनसाइड द कैंसर सेल और उसके ऊपर अटैक करें। वेरी क्रिएटिव, राइट? अभी जो है सेल बेस्ड थेरेपी पे जो सरफेस मार्कर है CD19 सरफेस मार्कर है, उसके करने के लिए इट टुक मैनी ईयर्स and eventually it worked. Immunologists worked for 30-40 years, it worked, and there is drug now, there are drugs now in the market. 2022, 21 के अंदर Jim Allison from MD Anderson, Texas, won the Nobel Prize for that cell-based therapy, for that therapy where it's for the immune therapy. And there is actually a, I think it should probably be online if you like, कि कितनी मशक्क़त and कितना creative science करने के बाद how many people he had to convince that eventually working with the big pharma and ensure that it will work, and it worked, So there is actually a document here. I think many of these things when you Google you will find, and इनकी जो है जिम एलिसन की अपनी मतलब मूवीज़ हैं, आई हैव सीन दी मूवीज ऑन PBS के अंदर, पब्लिक ब्रॉडकास्टिंग सिस्टम US के अंदर, यू कैन गूगल एंड यू विल फाइंड इट। बट यू सी द रीज़न आई एम मेंशनिंग इज नॉट कि मूवी देखो, आई विल नॉट प्रमोट दैट, बट साइंटिफिक मूवी देखो, नो सी, बट किस तरह से हाउ द फील्ड वाज डेवलप्ड, द होल जो जिसके लिए इम्यून थेरेपी के लिए उनको पता। बट अगेन दिस इज हाउ इट इज डन। यू टेक द सेल्स, collect the cells, you transfect the T cells, you engineer the T cells, after that you give the T cells back to the patient, specifically उसको इंजीनियर करके कि किस स्पेसिफिक कौन से टारगेट के लिए उसे करना है, you give back the T cells। जहाँ वो करता है it completely wipes the cancer away। बट चैलेंज अभी यह है कि अभी it's in a developing field, क्योंकि एक बार आपने इंजीनियर किया तो इट स्टार्ट समटाइम्स इतना स्पीड से बढ़ने लगता है, तो जो काइनोम स्टॉर्म जो है कोविड-19 का भी एक यही वन ऑफ द रीजन था कि इतनी फटाफट वो फैलते हैं, जो आपको काइनेजेस जो है कीनोम जो स्टॉर्म जो है इतनी फटाफट फैलता था, तो उसके कारण इतनी टॉक्सिसिटी बॉडी में हो जाती थी, क्योंकि नॉर्मल फंक्शन इज वट एवर द सेल्स आर वर्किंग, वट प्रोटीन्स आर वर्किंग, बट किसी की एकदम इतनी ज़्यादा से होने लगी, ऑब्वियसली वो दूसरों को अफेक्ट करेगी। आसपास 1000 प्रोटीन्स हैं, हर प्रोटीन का अपना फंक्शन है, वो फंक्शन ऊपर नीचे होने लगता है एंड बॉडी गोज haywire. So that control the toxicity of that has been a challenge, but things have evolved quite a bit now. So there are at least 5 drugs, CAR-T based drugs, which are in the market, and one of the leading person is from UPenn, Dr. Carl June. Again, I'm giving you these names, just read. Carl June, who actually mastered one of these techniques. So see, basically study started about 50 years ago कि bone अपना जो है bone marrow जो है उसमें से stem cells को निकाल के to study how those they behave, they work, what their functions are, and slowly, piece by piece. Now this is again the work of thousands and thousands of scientists, biologists, immunologists around the world in order to understand कि machinery काम कैसे करती है, and then slowly how you can tailor it to make it therapeutically useful. Anyway, so as you see here, this started, first trial was in pediatric बच्चों के अंदर, because there are not too many drugs available for in the pediatric population, and 2013 में पहली थेरेपी गई थी, FDA ने 2014 में breakthrough therapy. Again, breakthrough and these things are the timeline with speed with which FDA can give you the approval to be used. But anyway, now there are multiple drugs, at least there are 5 drugs which are in the market. So if you look at immune therapy के लिहाज से, there are, you know, immune therapy very targeted. You can have biospecifics which are working there. You can have antibody. I'll come to you. I'll show you. CAR-T I just mentioned. I'll show you briefly about biospecific antibodies and antibody drug conjugate. Traditionally, radiation, chemotherapy. I've been telling you about chemotherapy. Radiation जो है दिया जाता है, radiation, you know, radiation treatment दिया जाती है आपके. I mean, PGI also has departments of radiation oncology, for example. Stem cell transplantation, another methods which are used. So basically, ये जो machinery है, as you see, I've been telling you, machinery जो है, it's a very sophisticated machinery ever made is human body. And so there are obviously there are advantages, there are disadvantages. I have listed so some of these. The advantage is once it works, उसकी जो therapeutic effect है, जब उसने मार दिया जो enemies हैं, उन cells को मार दिया, उसका effect is lifelong. इस तरह से नहीं कि बार बार लेनी पड़े medicine, बार बार आपको pills लेने पड़े, IV लेना पड़े, उसका नहीं है. If it works, it completely removes, wipes out the cancer cells. Lifelong उसका effect होता है. So those are again, you know, so it is not just it's a therapy, it actually boosts the immune system. So it's more than just the therapeutic treatment. It makes your immune system, आपका जो defense mechanism है body का, उसको strong कर देता है. Advantage है. One of the disadvantages, for example, is it's a very expensive and fully not understood कि आपने जो बनाया है बॉडी के अंदर जाके कितना अटैक करेगा, कैसा अटैक करेगा, करेगा या नहीं करेगा, या उसका टॉक्सिक इफेक्ट होगा. सो इट इज़ नॉट फुल्ली अंडरस्टूड येट. जिन केसेस में, मोस्ट ऑफ दीज केसेस आर जो है आइदर पीडियाट्रिक केसेस हैं, उनमें अप्रूव हुआ है अब तक. एंड देयर इज रिसर्च गोइंग ऑन अराउंड द वर्ल्ड इन बेस्ट ऑफ द लैब्स trying to figure out how this immune therapy works. So this is as I was saying, the Kinome syndrome, this is cytokine release syndrome, जो एकदम से तूफान एकदम से आता है, cytokines जो हैं एकदम से बड़े एक्टिव हो जाते हैं. अब इतने एक्टिव हो गए तो बॉडी की सारी दूसरी फंक्शंस है, they get affected. Heart, lung, brain, सब पे असर होना शुरू होता है. Eventually body cannot cope up with that. So that is the toxic effect. Understanding that is still will take some time to understand how that thing actually works. But where it works beautifully. And the other thing is, the other approach is antibody based. Antibodies are used as therapeutics. So you can see, for example, here, आपके जो antibodies हैं, Y shape में, उसका structure रहा, for example, आप antibody को tag कर सकते हैं अपने किसी भी जो टारगेट के अंदर आपने डालना है, और स्पेसिफिकली उस टारगेट के अगेंस्ट आप एंटीबॉडी का वो है मिसाइल लगा सकते हैं उसको. सो दोज टेक्निक्स, देयर आर मेनी एंटीबॉडी which have been approved, therapeutics, which are mostly monoclonal antibodies जो कि हैं, they work beautifully. Same way biospecific. This is basically two different types of cells, bringing those cells together. You take the antibody, as you see the Y shape, एक पे एक से उसको अटैक किया, दूसरे पे दूसरे से अटैक किया. So you take two different cells, bring them together biospecifically, so they can go and inside the body they can, two drugs or two functions can be done simultaneously. So those are biospecific antibodies which can be designed, which people design in order to understand the disease and or to for the treatment purposes. So yeah, and most often these are given as IV. Plasma में सीधा blood cell में IV source से दिया जाता है, so it can circulate quickly. They don't sit around in the body for too long. This is just an additional part of this, that you can design various monoclonal antibodies. You can put various biospecific of interest so that those different targets go inside. Remember, inside the body there are thousands and thousands of proteins. There could be multiple targets. So एक ही के अंदर आपने एक चीज़ को टारगेट के लगाया, दूसरे को दूसरी चीज़ पर टारगेट पर लगाया. Presumably you know that what those targets are. You have enough information, and then with that antibody you give the IV, it goes inside and it does its functions. It interferes in that the driver protein of your disease, and it can stop the disease. So that's how these are used. This is just the summary part, and you'll have this slide, not to worry. But this was just to show for you to understand and to appreciate that there are a lot of antibodies which are being based research that is happening. The antibody sources could be from different sources. Rabbit से antibody बनाई जाती हैं क्योंकि antibody you're just simply growing safer antibody and then you're putting tag क्या लगाना है. So antibody design, again, huge field. Now just imagine I mentioned antibody, monoclonal antibody पे लगाना है. Now imagine कि आपका जो वही Y shape एंटीबॉडी का स्ट्रक्चर है उसके ऊपर आपने अपना स्मॉल मॉलिक्यूल जो कीमोथेरेपी है वो लगा दी, उस पर अटैच कर दिया, राइट. सो एक ड्रग, एक एंटीबॉडी which also has a therapeutic application and a drug which also has a therapeutic application. So you can take two drugs, and if there are the protein structure that you know and you want to attack on two different sides of the protein, now your missile actually has two drugs, एक तो antibody itself and then the small molecule, it going and attacking on that protein which is the driver, attacking that protein. So it's a growing field now, and there are I think about 19 drugs approved which is known as antibody drug conjugate. These are basically conjugate of antibody and the small molecule of interest. And there's tons and tons of research, and we are also doing some studies in our lab where same way, you take the drug, as I show here, have an antibody, you put one drug, you can put another drug, two different drugs of your interest. So in that case, antibody works as a delivery system because it's a warhead that takes the two drugs, two missiles, and attacks on the target. So you see here this cartoon that it shows, ये antibody आके cells पे लग गई क्योंकि it will bind to the surface protein, and now there are two missiles ready to interfere. So it can have a faster way. There, as I said, it started not too long ago, and there are already 18 or 19, I think, approved drugs in the market. So that's another area of interest. And basically, this is just again magnified picture of showing how your antibody